There is a fine line, I think, especially in Singapore, separating indie and pop, so-called mainstream music. So what is your definition of that?
Well, I mean, I think first of all we got to look what indie music is. What people called indie music back in the day referred to independent labels. And you know, this was a time where the four major record labels, I think it was 5 at one stage, pretty much had, you know, a whole huge market share on and control over the output of popular music. So bands that were released independently, you know, they decided to call it indie music. But as some time went by, you had more bands who were doing the independent scene crossing over to, you know, the commercial labels, the larger imprints, and sometimes you know, even the major labels would release on a smaller imprint, you know, just to give it the illusion of being an independent record, because there was a certain connotation of you know, perhaps credibility or non-conformity that was appealing and that was winning over a part of the audience. So I think now when we say indie music, is anything, we mean anything that doesn't sound, you know, you're too pop. You know, your normal huge polished pop, verse, chorus, verse, you know, huge big production, you know, is that kind of sound. So I think we started seeing a prominence of that in the 90s.
Over here, there isn't this culture. I mean, music is not a big part of our culture, you know, where like Friday night, people want to like, hey, let's go check out a live band, you know, playing original music, or let's go buy CDs or whatever, you know. It's just not part of our psyche, you know. It's not like in the States where, you know, kids grow up with the, you know, knowing the rock and roll roots, and they go out checking bands, and bands playing original music is the norm, you know. Where else here they might say, hey, let's go to a bar and drink and listen to a cover band, you know. So the culture is just different.
So is going abroad and trying to make it there and then coming back the only way?
Well, maybe it's not the only way, but it's certainly one of the ways. And actually, I've heard one comment before, which is quite a strong comment. Ong Beng Seng basically said that he actually had very little respect for the local bands here, or something to that effect. Because, you know, if you're really serious, you know, go overseas and try and make it then, right? Which, when you look at it, it seems harsh, but at the same time, you understand what he's talking about, right? But the problem, of course, for us is that the way that we have been socially engineered is that we are such a pragmatic lot. We don't dare take risks. The culture that doesn't appreciate the arts, doesn't appreciate music, film, or any of those things, right? We only appreciate, you know, doing a normal 9-to-5 job and bringing home the bacon, so to speak, right? If not, nobody will respect you, right? So if you kind of gotta do that kind of risk-taking venture, right? Everybody under the sun is gonna tell you out of your mind, you know. Every relative, every parent is gonna tell you out of your mind, you know. Did I send you to school to do this kind of thing? So that is, it's just so ingrained in our culture. That's why it's.
In terms of going out there, do you think Singaporeans will be accepting towards somebody who goes out there, so-called relinquishes their Singaporean identity and then comes back?
Perversely, I think almost yes. Sad to say, it shouldn't have to be that way. It really shouldn't have to be that way. Ideally, we would be able to retain our sense of, you know, whatever sense of culture and identity that we have, and that sense of Singaporeanness. But we don't have a touring industry. We can't go out on the road. Where you want to play Pasir Panjang, after that Bukit Ho Swee. You know what I mean? It's not realistic to expect a small country like Singapore to support that level of infrastructure. But we can do a lot more by, you know, for example, the government having grants for bands to record and tour. You know, the government sort of like implementing legislation that would put a quota on local music. You know, maybe laws that, you know, stipulate that when promoters bring in a foreign band, you need to have a local support act.
That's right.
You know, little things like that, tax rebates and tax benefits for companies that are that want to promote and support local music. You know, encourage all these, encourage people to set up venues, encourage people to take the risk, so that failure isn't everything. You know, I mean, people here, the minute you are touched by the sense of failure, it's like, oh boy, you know, it's all over and done. See, he should have stuck with the path. That's not the answer. That's what everyone says the minute they see failure. See, he should have just gone to law school, stuck with his engineering degree, and just become a corporate drone like everybody else. That's the answer, because it helps them make sense of their own lives and their own choices.
Yeah.
But there's got to be more than that out there, and there's so much that can be done, even though Singapore is a small country.
That is very true. I mean, it's a cultural endeavor. It's not a business proposition all the time, especially with music. I think they got it all wrong.
I mean, it's not rocket science, because the precedents are everywhere. You go to Australia, Canada, the Scandinavian countries, all of them support their own musicians with money, right, and funding and everything. So it's not as if nobody else has done it. Right? Everybody else is doing it in other countries. Even Taiwan this year brought 10 indie bands to South by Southwest, fully funded by Taiwanese government. There's really there's no need to reinvent the wheel, right? Because everything has already been done, you know. So nobody needs to ask the question, like any of the government bodies. There's no need to ask the question what can be done, because, you know, just look at Sweden, look at Finland, Norway. They are all doing it already, and, you know, their populations are similar to ours. Or take Iceland; it's got only 300,000 people, and yet you know Sigur Rós and you know Björk, right? So Singapore, you know, we're ahead of them, 5 million. So I don't see why we can't produce our own Björks or our own Sigur Rós.
My one and only.